An Oklahoma man whose prison sentence had been commuted cut and cooked out a woman's heart and tried to feed it to his relatives before killing two of them, authorities said. The Oklahoma man who was released early from prison broke into a woman's home this month, cut out her heart, cooked it and tried to feed it to his relatives, and then killed two of them, the authorities said this week. Lawrence Paul Anderson, who has been charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder in the killings, had been sentenced to 20 years in prison in 2017 for a probation violation in a drug case, but public records show that he was granted clemency last year by the Oklahoma Pardon and Parole Board as part of a mass commutation program. His sentence was reduced to 9 years, but he's required to serve only 3 years and was released in January. Now, prosecutors are questioning how Mr. Anderson, 42, had been incarcerated several times before, became eligible for a sentence commutation, which requires governor's approval. The district attorney in charge of the case said during a news conference on Tuesday that he could seek the death penalty for Mr. Anderson. When is enough, said Jason Hicks, the district attorney for Grady County. We have put politics and releasing inmates in front of public safety. On or shortly before February 9th, about 3 weeks after his release from prison, Mr. Anderson forced his way into the Chickasha, Oklahoma home of Andrea Lynn Blankenship, 41, killing her and cutting out her heart according to an affidavit for a search warrant. Miss Blankenship's body bore stab wounds and showed signs of blunt force trauma, the authorities said. Mr. Anderson told investigators that he had taken Miss Blankenship's heart across the street to the house of his aunt and uncle on February 9th, cooked it with potatoes and tried to feed it to them to release the demons, the affidavit said. Mr. Anderson then attacked the couple and their 4-year-old granddaughter on February 9th, killing his uncle Leon Pye, 67, and the granddaughter Keels Yates, both of whom had been stabbed and showed signs of blunt force trauma, the authorities said. Mr. Anderson's aunt, who called 911, survived the attack, but suffered stab wounds to both her eyes, investigators said. Mr. Anderson was taken into custody at the home of his aunt and uncle that day and was hospitalized for extensive cuts to his hand that required surgery. On February 11, 2 days after the killings of his uncle and cousin, Mr. Anderson revealed that he had also killed their neighbor, Miss Blankenship, the authorities said. In addition to the murder counts, Mr. Anderson was charged this week with assault and battery with a deadly weapon and maiming. According to the court records, he was denied bail. Investigators said they seized pots and pans from the home of Mr. Anderson's aunt and uncle as evidence. Al Haq, a lawyer for Mr. Anderson, did not immediately respond to requests for comment, but said during a court appearance on Tuesday that he was seeking mental evaluation to determine whether Mr. Anderson was competent to stand trial, the Associated Press reported. So what is Oklahoma's Pardon and Parole Board's mass commutation program? In Oklahoma, at least 3 to 5 members of the state's parole board must favorably recommend an inmate for commutation, according to the board's website. The applications are then presented to the governor for final approval. 3 of the board's current members were appointed by the panel by Mr. Stitt, according to their biographies on their board's website. Mr. Hicks, the district attorney, said on Tuesday that Mr. Anderson was one of 600 applicants whose commutation cases were reviewed by the parole board over 3 days in January 2020. I really think an offender such as this should have not been able to apply for commutation when somebody has the record that he has, he said. That application should have never been heard. Who was Lawrence Paul Anderson? Lawrence Paul Anderson was a convicted drug dealer. He was ordered back in prison in 2017 for 20 or more years after being caught with a gun and using drugs. Anderson remains a threat to both society and himself, his probation officer and parole officer reported at the time. He got out January 18 after a little more than 3 years behind bars. Later on, he killed his uncle, his 4-year-old niece, and attacked his aunt in their home in Chickasha, Oklahoma, the State Bureau of Investigation reported. He then also reported to killing his neighbor. Anderson was first sentenced to prison in Oklahoma in 2006 for 4 years for attacking his girlfriend, pointing a gun at her, and possession of crack cocaine with the intent to distribute. Records show he was out in less than 2 years. He went back to prison in 2012 to serve a 15-year sentence for selling crack cocaine near an elementary school in Chickasha. He was also ordered to spend 20 years on probation after his release. He was out in less than 5 years and 4 months. He was sent back to prison in 2017 of December to serve 20 or more years when a judge both revoked his probation in full and sentenced him to new crimes. His probation violation included testing positive for PCP and cocaine use. His new crimes involve having a gun and sneaking PCP into jail. The point of probation and parole laws is that if someone is likely to behave, you can let them out. However, if the probation and parole is violated, the person is already sentenced to jail, so they can be sent back. The reason crack cocaine and PCP are taken so seriously by the courts is that these drugs do not only cause harm to the user, they make them violent. It's not at all unlikely that Anderson's own crimes were fueled by drug-induced psychosis. These were serious crimes, and he should have been kept in jail. He knows that himself, by the way. The Associated Press reported that at his bail hearing he said, "I don't want no bail, Your Honor. I don't want no bail." So what do you guys think of this case? It's pretty interesting. Let me know in the comment box. It seemed like even he didn't want to be released from jail. At his parole hearing, he said he didn't even want bail. You know, he was let out due to the commutation. And he got out and he ended up killing a 4-year-old, his uncle, almost killing his aunt, and then his neighbor. And then he tried to feed his family the neighbor's heart with potatoes. Yeah, he definitely was suffering from a lot of mental issues. I don't know if it was from the drug usage, probably was, or did he had previous mental issues beforehand, before the drug use, or was it a combination of mental issues and drug usage? I don't know, but I know it's unfortunate that a little girl lost her life, his uncle lost his life, the neighbor lost her life, and his aunt almost lost her life. Very unfortunate situation that could have been prevented had they kept him in jail. Let me know what you think. This is Brandon Cooper with the BC Case Files, and I'm out.